So maybe a virtual avatar that lets you plug in will just allow us to be more efficient and have more time to do higher level things, that our two generations back, they didn't have time for it. They didn't, you know? So I I don't know. So again, there's the hammer.
Well,
Which
yeah,
view of the hammer do you want? You know?
yeah. I mean, remember, there are no bad tools.
Right. That's what I'm
No,
saying. And I think
tools don't
I
kill
think
people.
again,
People kill people, right?
yeah, and what makes me nervous is the they language, because I mean, cancel culture, honestly, all that is capitalism, isn't it? Isn't it just, if I don't like something, I'll stop investing attention and resources in it, and then it will die. It will go away. It's whether it's pet rocks, or think about all the fads, and Cabbage Patch dolls. One year, everybody's fighting, and paying thousands of dollars to get them for Christmas, and 5 years later, they don't exist.
Beanie
Why?
Babies, yeah,
You
the
know?
whole whatever.
So I mean, a book disappears off the shelves. It's no longer published because people aren't interested anymore. They stop buying it. So then the publisher says, you know what? No one's buying these things. I'm going to get rid of it. And and then if there's a reaction to it, I always view that like the kid when you clean out their room and you go to get rid of toys they haven't played with in 3 years, and all of a sudden they're like, but I want that still. Right? They got a reminder of it. So now, but they don't. They don't. They're just remembering something that used to attract their attention, that no longer does. So there's, but it can be hard. It can be hard to let go of things that we have an attachment to. And, so you have an attachment to work meaning a certain thing, or money meaning a certain thing, or success meaning a certain thing. Those things are, we should encourage the evolution of those things, especially if it moves us all towards a state of, I don't know, at least functional coexistence. I don't think there'll ever be harmonious existence, because
Such a
we're,
dreamer, my friend.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that about you. And if you could take a breath for 1 second, I'm going to tell
sure,
you,
sure, yeah,
if the world had your altruistic sense of what makes things work, we'd have no problems. You know what the biggest difference between cancel culture and how other people have just watched something quietly go out of existence back in the day? You know, when you went to church and somebody was sharing stories about someone who had said something publicly that was so abhorrent, once you heard about it, you didn't talk over, I'm not going to buy that orange juice anymore, or I'm not going to buy those cornflakes, because Bruce Jenner is on the cover and of Wheaties, but now he's a woman, and well, I mean, how do we manage that? So the point is that we're cancel culture was like one of those aha moments when a very tiny group of people decided that they would try to activate other people that either A already agreed with them, or B didn't want the consequences of their nasty speech to be focused on them in particular. So this was like 6 7 years ago, 10 years ago. When did you first hear cancel culture? It's a relatively new term, like 3 4 years.
yeah. I never heard it until recently, and when I heard it, I thought it was just an attempt to label something, that's always existed. It just became more intentional, like, you know
No,
people, and I think it caught attention for a while, and I think, personally, I think it'll just fade into the background.
it's a
It's not,
Twitter phenomenon,
you know
okay? No
yeah,
Twitter, no cancel culture. This allows people to call for the destruction of a person's life's work in minutes and have it generated to hundreds of millions of people around the world. And it is so powerful that they actually used all the bot technologies for retweeting and all that sort of thing, so that everybody who saw this everywhere was like, yeah, of course we're gonna cancel, we're gonna cancel this company, we're gonna cancel that company, until some people stood up, like Goya, the the food company,
mhm,
and said, man, y'all are crazy. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not changing my policies. Give me your best shot. See if I'm still standing. That CEO The rest of the CEOs that have no backbone have created this phenomenon, and it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy by allowing first their language to be changed, then their thought process to be changed, then their behavior to be changed, and now they are programmed to respond to anything on command, up to and including the drawings of Eminem's. Uh, uh, what the what?
See now that kind of stuff, I think, is a waste of time to be outraged about.
Oh,
Honestly, and I'll tell you why. It's kind of interesting to me, like, because I heard about that. The other one I just heard recently was Carhartt. They're all boycotting Carhartt because they continue to have a vaccine mandate. So, which I found humorous because all the news, companies they're listening to have the same thing. If they're using an AT&T service, they're the same thing. Every airline has it. So, but they picked one out to direct their outrage at. And I think
that's my
that's what
point.
happened. And you know
100%.
what? Carhartt, they're not going to change their mandate. They're like, fine, burn the clothes you already bought. What do we care?
Yeah.
And they're going to commit to quality, and they'll be fine. You know, if Eminem wants to modify the way their cartoon M&Ms look because of their being aware of shifts in culture and their market, more power to them. I don't care what kind of shoes the M&Ms wear. So
Right.
and it
Okay, but I'm telling you what, there was no point for them to do that until all this transformational change in the language, the thinking, the behaviors, and now the commands. Around the world, all corporations on all continents in every single country that matters, they're all trying to escape the watchful gaze of those people, the them that might come after them like a Carhartt or like a pillow guy or
who's but who's them? There's got to be enough people on the planet that want to be more aware of gender not being as binary as or being more fluid, whatever. There's enough people that this company said, we're a business, we make money, we make profits, and our market is saying that they would like to see. It'd be like saying, wasn't there a point where there's some color M&M they didn't have, red or green, or I don't remember what it was, and then they added it because people wanted it, and
I
they're
think it
like,
was blue.
yeah, I don't remember. So so was that, was that bowing to the pressure of the this oppressive them,
Well,
or is it?
see,
Yeah,
that's an important thing that you're saying. Throughout history, companies changed their products as a result of marketing, uh, telling them what would make it more desirable and make it uh, more usable by more people. But
yeah,
that's not what's motivating folks today. And there's two sides to this and many different flavors of it. So I'm not I'm basically I'm taking the opposite so we can have this conversation. But the
yeah, yeah.
point is there is nobody out there who can withstand an onslaught of 50 or 60,000 retweets in a couple of hours without doing something to it unless they're pretty darn sure of who they are. And the other part of it is the people who are inside the companies that are making these changes, they ain't like you and me sitting back waiting for people to make suggestions to them. They is the activists. They are inside the
Sure.
corporation, and they are so idea that you've got that these corporations are in their ivory towers and are withstanding all of this change in the culture having to do with language leading to thought, leading to behavior, leading to commands. um, I just made that up, by the way. I don't even know if I've ever heard that anywhere. But my point is this: you get enough people who have been converted to a way of thinking and who are trained to respond automatically without putting any thought to it. They ain't like you and me, where we can sit back and we can go, man, I just don't see how that makes sense for people. I don't see how that's good for anybody. You know, if if we're going to take this small group of people over here who say they're feeling bad, and now we're going to make the whole rest of the world get that emotion, by placating them and letting them have control over what we do with other people, that kind of sounds like, some bad guys in history, That doesn't sound like that's good for children and other living things in my book. That's not like kumbaya, live and let live, laissez-faire. This is like, no, we have vase. We have vase.
Yeah, yeah. I find it very interesting. I think that so much of what we're experiencing now is you've got a tidal shift in how people view themselves and what they want their world to look like, and everyone out there is they're figuring out how to respond to that. So, and companies are going to do certain things, and depending on their values and their audience, that's going to lead them down certain pathways, and others are going to have different ones, and they're going to do different things. And I guess it just comes back to us. We each get to choose what we're going to feed our energy and attention. And and it's funny, I don't think I'm idealistic or altruistic. I think I'm just realistic with a little side dish of optimism that, you know, it, in the end, it's, it, there's an opportunity for us to be better than we've been, and to continue to evolve as a species. And that is not going to be linear. It's going to be, you know, all over the place, ups and
Always
downs.
has been, Ken. You're
You know?
100% right.
Yeah. So, so in the meantime, I'm just going to choose to be the person that I've chosen to be in the world, and, not feed anger and outrage, from either side or any perspective, and I'm going to do my best to try to be a balanced, graceful human in the world. And I'll model that. And I'll adjust my language on an ongoing basis to continue to model that to people that move in and out of my circle. And, you know, and if they adopt it and that starts to spread and it leads to ripple effects of people deciding they don't want to participate in certain things that they don't agree with anymore because they have a new perspective, so be it. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm saying that I'm not afraid of our ability as a species to figure this out and navigate it better and better over time. And some people aren't going to like it, and some people are going to be terrified of it, and others are going to be outrageous in the way that they handle it. And in the end, let's hope we figure it out. And if we don't know it, none of us will be around anyway. So the dinosaurs
I
lasted a
don't
lot longer
know.
than we did.
I really don't know. I used to worship at St. Paul's Church back in the 80s and 90s with a man who was he was a German foot soldier. Actually, his hands were so arthritic, and he would tell me stories about what it was like in Germany, prior to the 1930s, because he was a very, very small boy, like maybe 8 or 9 years old, in the early 1930s. And what he was saying was, um, there was no point through his entire early years till he got to be 18, 19 years old that he ever thought that he would be a soldier in the German army. German army had no reason after after Kaiser Bill got beaten World War I, had no reason to have an army at all. In fact, the rest of Europe at that point weren't interested in them coming back and doing the same thing all over again, except for the people who were in power had made certain decisions about how they were going to conduct themselves going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And you got this perfect balance of people being dominated. If you remember, the whole rise of fascism was a response to really poor leadership by those countries that had prior to that had kings and queens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of those people, I mean, all of the royal thrones throughout Europe were all the same families. I mean, they intermarried over hundreds of years, and they all came from the same families. So the whole point with Ernie's story was None of this needed to happen except for fascism, which communism